Hello and welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be going over how to quickly prune a fruit tree here in the winter time while the tree is still dormant. Here in front of us we've got a Sweet Treat Pluary. This is a semi-dwarf. As you can see, it's lost all of its foliage for the season, and it also hasn't yet began to wake up for the springtime. That's when the little buds will start to swell and open up, so we really want to target this wintertime pruning while this tree is in that in-between stage. There's only a couple tools I recommend using for this task, and that is a really nice pair of hand shears or hand pruners. Felco is my favorite brand. They hold up very well. And also a small fine-tooth folding saw. My favorite for years has been the Pocket Boy. Extremely sharp, durable, holds up, makes a really nice clean cut. Now before I get going here, there's one thing I'm going to do, and that's to sharpen up my hand shears. It's important when making these cuts that we get them as clean as possible. We don't want any crushing of any of the limbs, and that's why we're not going to be using any sort of a lopper to make these cuts, as I find them to not be the most appropriate tool, especially when we're pruning edible landscape plants like fruit trees. Now there's many ways that you can sharpen your hand tools. I find this to be the easiest. This is a little tool made by Corona, and it's got a carbide tip. Just a few swipes on either side of the blade at a slight angle. That's going to give you a nice, clean, crisp edge. Now the first thing I like to do is just take a good look at the tree and visualize the overall shape that I'm going for. Now what I'm aiming to accomplish here while I prune this tree is to get it to fit in with the other close proximity trees that are in this what's known as a fruit tree hedgerow. So I've got some close dense planting here, so I'm going to bring in the sides a bit, and I'm also going to bring down the top like I'd mentioned and clear out the center. I like to work from the center outward, and when working your way into the center of the tree, be careful not to brush up against the branches and perhaps damage or break any of the limbs. Be very careful and delicate, but once you get into a rhythm, you'll find that this goes by really quickly and can be quite enjoyable. Alright, so here in the center of the tree, you can see we've got some limbs that are shooting straight up right towards the middle of the tree. We want to take those out first, because once the tree begins to wake up and leaf out, these branches are going to crowd the center of the tree and block out a lot of the sun and the airflow, which can hinder growth and also cause fungal and bacterial diseases. And if after making your cut you see that you could have maybe gotten a little bit closer, you can go ahead and go over it once again. And this is where a really sharp fine-tooth saw comes in handy. It's easy to clean up and make any cut perfect. So now I'm going to start pruning back the lateral growth, or the growth growing outward from the tree. And what I'm going to be doing as I'm making these cuts is I'm going to be looking at the different nodes, the little buds that are growing on each branch, and I want to cut it so that I'm right above a bud that's shooting outward from the tree instead of inward. And I'm going to make my cut nice and clean, pretty close, right above that node, about 1/8 of an inch or so. Now, as I'm going around doing this pruning job, I'm not looking for perfection on this first round. I'm just trying to get the bulk of this work done. I can come around later in the year, early spring, and do a few more cleanup cuts if I need to. But it can be a wise decision to leave some extra limbs on the tree, because after making these cuts, some of those limbs may not survive throughout the winter. So having any extra limbs around that can be used as a backup in case any of those limbs don't survive is a really nice technique. It's also important to note that you should never remove more than 1/3 of the tree's growth in a single growing season. Doing so can result in excessive new growth forming, which can reshape the tree in a negative way. Also, it can create open areas where the tree was previously shaded and create sunburn situations. So whenever I'm doing a pruning job, I like to actually stick to below 25% of the total mass of the tree. And then if I need to come around later in the season and do a little bit more touch-up pruning, I can still stay within that 1/3 rule. I'm also going to be going around and bringing the tree down a bit, so taking some cuts off the top. I like to keep my trees at a reasonable height where I can actually reach the fruit. Not only is this more convenient, but this also helps with keeping birds from nesting in your tree and other wildlife from making a home up there. Lower growing trees just don't look like a habitable situation for wildlife because they know they're not going to be very safe there. It's not too high up off the ground. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking now. We've given the tree a nice haircut, if you will. So there's one last step that I always suggest doing after you do this type of pruning, and that is to give the tree a spray down with some copper fungicide spray. This is an organic spray used in organic gardening, and all this is going to do is help to protect the tree and all those cuts that you made from developing any type of fungal or bacterial issues that could hinder the tree or cause some sort of a problem in the future. And all you need to apply this product is a simple hand pump sprayer, and you just want to make sure as you're going about this duty that you're not breathing any of this in. It can be a wise decision to wear a face mask or respirator. Also, try not to use too fine of a mist or spray setting when you're applying. Also, it's of great benefit if you can actually do all of this work at a time when you're not going to have rain for at least a few days. That's not always going to be possible. Just do the best you can. If you do have a rain event come shortly after you apply this copper fungicide, you're going to want to reapply the spray once again after the rains have moved out of the area, and perhaps even a third time once the tree starts to break dormancy and open up. Now, this isn't something you absolutely have to do, and you don't have to do it every year, but it's a small investment of time and money. It's still in line with organic gardening techniques, but I encourage you to experiment with whatever's working for you on your property. If you can get away with not having to do any sort of a spray, more power to you. Alright everyone, well that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you found it helpful or entertaining in some way. If you did, I sure would appreciate if you give the video a rating, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. New uploads every week, sometimes every day, and I'm always giving you updates on all the different things growing on around here. So with that, I want to wish y'all a great rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care, I'll be talking to you again soon.